do it on another edition of The Script, a podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. His real name via satellite is Cardale Jones. His nickname here in studio is Beanie Wells. I'm Dave Holmes. Make sure you hit us up at The Script OSU. Subscribe right now on YouTube. Cardale, first off, this is the first remote show. We like to be in the same room, so take us through. Where on earth are you right now?
Right now, I'm in Las Vegas, man. Today, Coach Meyer is getting inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame. So had an opportunity to fly out here on behalf of, a lot of the former players he coached at Ohio State and teams that I was a part of, and be out here. And I already saw a few guys last night, Michael Thomas, Joshua Perry, then a lot of staff members. Ryan Day actually came out here to support him. Ross Bjork is out here and things like that. So a lot of Buckeye love is out here to support Coach Meyer going into the College Football Hall of Fame.
Beanie, a lot has changed. 10 years ago, Urban Meyer's worst nightmare was to have Cardale Jones in Las Vegas.
Right.
And now he wants him there.
It still is.
No question.
Well, I don't know if he wanted me here. I invited myself. As soon as I saw that he got inducted, I think it was this past January when they announced this class, and I looked it up and I saw it was in Vegas. I sent them a screenshot of me booking my flight. Said, I see you in Vegas.
I love that. I love that. Well, we got a lot to talk about today. So many things. Let's start with the bad news, guys. 13-10, the Buckeyes fall in the Big Ten championship game to Indiana. Now, if we want to write a romantic story here, Beanie, last year the Buckeyes lost 13-10 to Michigan. They ran the table. We'll see if 13-10 gets them going again here. They were held scoreless the final 40 minutes. Some of that is self-inflicted. Some of it's Indiana. So your thoughts on what was a pretty ugly outing for the Buckeyes?
It was just, uncharacteristic game of Ohio State. I thought we were able to kind of move the ball but not capitalize in certain situations, particularly in the red zone. I thought it was atrocious. For us, in two particular situations, we got into a 3rd and 1. We passed the ball. And then we go forward on 4th down and we don't get it. Then we go back get into another 3rd and 1 situation and we're passing the ball. And I'm okay with passing the ball, right? But there has to be a clear distinction and message to the quarterback is if it's not open, you take off and run it. We ran bootlegs on those 3rd and 1 situations and it was a yard. And we could have got that yard. And that was the most disappointing thing to me. And then the rhythm of the play calling was out of sync all night long, and it just didn't give like a great feeling in that football game. You knew Ohio State was a team that played methodical. They weren't up tempo in terms of what they did on the offensive end, and I knew that at some point that would come back and hurt us. Yeah. We tried to run tempo offense in the second half, looked good, it worked, and we were able to move the ball, but we just didn't do it enough.
Yeah, Cardale, what happened inside the 10? Because that's really the story of this game. They got down there and they went for it. They got denied. What really happened inside the red zone?
Yeah, I think they just fell opportunities to capitalize on some things. And I want to get credit where credit's due. I want to just go back to a comment Beanie just made about it being atrocious. And I think I'm going to have to disagree with that on the side of, I think Indiana, and I said this all week on CBS and CBS Network, that it was basically Indiana at that point was more battle tested. You look at the way they played in Iowa, had to deal with adversity. You look at clearly going up to Eugene and playing there. The Buckeyes went up there last year, didn't walk out victorious. And I will argue that this Oregon team is better than the Oregon team than last year. Indiana went in there and handled business. And then clearly the adversity they dealt with coming back in the 4th quarter drought versus Penn State. So those things, Indiana was like, we've been here before. And I want to drag you, Ohio State, to deep waters to see how you respond. We know about all the great players on both sides of the ball, but you guys haven't played meaningful football in the 4th quarter, really pretty much probably the start of the 3rd quarter this whole season. And Indiana responded to all those things. And then when you talk about, those 3rd and 1 situations, really, I want to give Indiana credit where credit is due. Ohio State didn't lose this game. Indiana won this game. This is not a situation like last year, 10-13, where I felt like Ohio State lost the game versus Michigan. No, Indiana won this game. And Beanie, you're talking about those 3rd and 1s and those short yardage that, we couldn't get things going on the run game. Well, Ohio State #1 defense, including the Big Ten in the country, statistically. But you know who's right behind them in the area management and major stat?
Indiana.
When you talk about the rush defense and the rush offense, one of my keys to victory for Indiana, or what Ohio State had to do, was to stop the rushing attack of Indiana, because we know how good they are with Black in the backfield, and then clearly a lot of that is driven off the success they can have in the pass game. And on the flip side, for Indiana, I said for them to win this game, they got to make Julius Sand uncomfortable. Well, I think they did by having 5 sacks and hit him probably numerous more times. on a quarterback who we haven't seen yet had to respond to that adversity because so many guys was good. So around him, on top of his unbelievable talent. So it was more of an Indiana winning this game versus Ohio State losing.
I don't agree with that personally.
Me either.
Go in on him because I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I think Ohio State really lost the game. When you look at the game metrics and the tempo and the way the game was going, Ohio State pretty much controlled Indiana and what they were able to do offensively. 13 points. The rushing game, they ran efficient enough to convert on third downs and short yardage situations to sustain drives. But for the most part, Ohio State didn't capitalize on opportunities. We had Julian Sand, who was out of sync in the game. He missed a couple of wide open throws. And then in the play calling, particularly the second, 3rd and 1 going into the end zone, when we did run the boot, we just came off of 2 plays before watching Bo Jackson have some serious runs to kind of get you down in the red zone. So the run game was working. So I think more so for me, obviously we all got 2 sets of eyes, so we all interpret it and look at it a little bit differently. Ohio State lost the game because they were still in it at the end when we had Indiana's best shot. I don't think that was Ohio State's best shot or best opportunity.
So that's my take, too. So I do agree with what Cardale's saying as far as, like, the O-line gave up 5 sacks. Mm-hmm. They gave up 6 sacks all year. So clearly that's on Indiana. Indiana forced their will there on the defensive line. But I do think, like what Beanie's saying, a lot of this was self-inflicted. I look at the Julian Sayin QB sneak where he basically took a knee. Why, guys? Answer me this. If we've seen all these Lincoln Kienholz packages, especially the last couple of weeks of the season, if you got to pick up 4th and 1, isn't Kienholz the guy to sneak that? I mean, Julian basically took a knee, Cardale. What do you think?
And we saw him do it versus Michigan, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Kienholz Lincoln is going to be the guy you go in there and run a quarterback sneak with. But, guys, I'm going to go back to my point of this. I'm looking up the stats right now. Time of possession was basically even, 29 minutes to 30 minutes. Ohio State 1 by 1. How many first downs both teams had? 17. Third down efficiency. 6 for 13 for Indiana, 4 for 11. That's winning football for the Indiana Hoosiers. Total yards, 340 to 322. And I think with that Hail Mary Ohio State was in the 200s with total yards. And then rushing yards. We talk about statistics and metrics that help you win games, especially games like that. Indiana 118, Ohio State 58. And then red zone success, 3 for 4 for Indiana, 2 for 4 for Ohio State. And what else is the major one? Both teams had 1 turnover. And when you talk about sacks, Indiana dominated the sack margin. So I'm going back to my point of saying Indiana won this game. It wasn't like Ohio State played so poorly and put themselves in so many positions, but it's always hindsight. You can look at these situations, right? Ohio State going for it and then get the third down conversion or 4th down conversions. But I would argue Indiana stopped them from getting those conversions without the side of Julian Sand going into the end. Knee hitting the ground as he trying to get that extra push for the quarterback sneak. Without that, clearly he gets that easily. But Indiana also missed the field goal as well.
Okay. So no, and I'm with you. And I want to be clear because there's this perception among Buckeye Nation that Ohio State fans make excuses. I've seen that a lot. Mm-hmm. All right. No excuses. Indiana played better, and they're the Big Ten champs. So I want to be clear that is out there. I do not think that Indiana deserves that championship. Kurt Cignetti, incredible. But you accidentally took a knee on a QB sneak. You shank a kick after Jaden Fielding's 13 of 13 inside 30 in his career. Those are the things, Beanie, that I think when you look back on this, if both teams play to their ceiling, I think Ohio State wins this game. Now, that's part of football.
Right.
The team that plays better wins the game, and Indiana deserved to win the game. But I think this is one of those where, a few years ago, we talked about the Devontae Smith game where he treated the Buckeyes like a bunch of tackling dummies out there. This wasn't that. This was not 2 teams on a different level. This is one team, I thought, blew a few easy plays in Ohio State, and another team made the plays.
Yeah, and to Cardale's point, I do think Indiana was more battle-tested, so they were able to withstand a little bit more. But I just can't not go away from the fact that Ohio State made so many mistakes in that game and still was in it, and still had a chance to win the football game with everything that didn't go their way.
Okay.
So, and that's where I'm at with
that. And that's
no,
where I'm.
Sure.
So I'd say if I take a silver lining from this game, guys, for me, it's that you didn't play well. Mm-hmm. I don't think you played well. And part of that's Indiana imposing their will, no question. But your O-line played poorly. You shanked the kick. You had an accidental knee. You didn't get inside the red zone, or in the end zone twice inside the 10. Despite all that, in a 1v2, in a game that was a hostile road-ish atmosphere, you still lost by a field goal. So this is, Cardale, this is not a sky is falling for me. This is a chance to regroup and get ready for this playoff.
No, I 100% agree with you on that. And then you talk about, I want to go back to the points of the missed opportunities for Ohio State. Well, when did those missed opportunities come? In crunch time. When have they had to do that this year in crunch time? So we talk about Jaden Fieldings being 30 for 30 inside the 30 of his career. How many of those field goals came in scenarios and situations which on the line that it was in the fourth quarter? Julian saying same thing. You know, I know how bad he wanted that freaking third down. I've done that before, but I'm in the crunch time situation where I'm saying I got to get this first down, and you're slipping and all that, whatever made them happen. So that goes back to my point of being a little bit more battle tested and being in those situations for Indiana where it helped them, and in Ohio State, well, it didn't do you much justice.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. And let me ask you this, Beanie. So I hate hindsight 2020 type stuff, Monday morning quarterback. I hate it in general because in the moment, you know, it feels differently. But when Ryan sent Jaden Fielding out there, I turned to the person next to me in the press box and said, I'm a little surprised he's not going for it here, just because you're basically giving the other team the final shot. Even if you make that, Indiana's got a couple minutes left to potentially kick a game-winning field goal. You basically have no chance of winning the game. You're playing for OT. I don't hate it because I did not think for 1 second Jaden Fielding was going to shank that thing like it was the first tee. I didn't think that was going to happen. But did you even think about a chance of going for it in that situation and trying to end the game on your terms right then?
No, I really didn't.
Okay.
You know, just because we didn't get the last one before.
That's true.
I mean, you lose that goes to the psyche of a coach and the players out there. When you talk to KC, Kevin Carter, and Brent Stover, Cardale, they'll tell you, right when he lined up for that kick, I said he's going to miss it. I said, I do not like the feel of this because we were in the same exact situation a year ago versus Michigan, and he shanked the kick trying to tie it up. And I said, I don't like it. And I didn't like the position. And lo and behold, that happens. But the thing is, with this football team, I'm okay with it. I'm actually glad that if we were going to lose, it happened right then and there, because Ohio State has an opportunity to kind of rebuild themselves, go look in the mirror and say, all right, we weren't battle tested. This gives us an opportunity to be battle tested, and now we can clean up everything that we need to make a run. Look, these are two of the best teams in the country, and I think by far. So with that being said, you lose by 3 points, you can go back and regroup, and you know you didn't play your best. I see Ohio State making a crazy, dangerous run in this playoff.
Yeah, Cardale, after the game, all the players said the right things about Jaden Fielding, but you know that walking down that tunnel, some guys are probably mumbling under their breath. They can't believe he missed that kick in that situation. So what do you do for a kicker in a locker room after a game? Because that is as bad of a miss in as bad of a situation as you could ask for.
I think any player been in that situation, no matter what position. And I look at guys like Jermaine Matthews Jr., who did not have his best outing. I'm pretty sure he was kicking himself, from the lack of we've seen him play as he played Saturday. And a few other of those guys are probably kicking themselves and probably can put the pressure on themselves, basically saying, hey, we lost because of this. When it's not, when it's a collective team effort. But I really want to go back to the point Beanie just made about, or you guys just talked about the fourth down situation. And I understand why Ryan will go for that field goal in that scenario situation, because you still got all timeouts, you still got the 2-minute timeout, and your defense only giving up 13 points in this point of the game to offense was averaging over 35. So putting the game back in the hands of your defense is understandable. I think I would have went for it. And if you didn't get it, you give him a longer field to drive on top of having all your timeouts and at your disposal. But I understand why he wanted to go for it, because you got the best defense in the country. You're thinking of 3 and out. Now I got almost a little over 2 minutes and a potential 2-minute timeout to work with to get another field goal to set yourself up for a game-winning drive. So,
yeah, I agree. I would have gone for it too. I'm not mad about it. This is not one of those how could you moments. I personally would have gone for it there. And you mentioned Jermaine Matthews Jr., Cardale. I was standing in the tunnel as the players walked off the field. He was one of the most upset guys there. Coaches had their arms around him. He knew he didn't play his best game. And Jermaine, he's a competitor. So you know you're going to get 2 or 3 good weeks of practice out of him right now. The one thing, all right, I talked to, I think about 7 players after the game they brought in for us to do little group interviews. The phrase I kept hearing, I think 3 different guys said, we got exposed. That's interesting, Beanie. Do you feel like teams saw a blueprint now how to beat the Buckeyes? Because they certainly indicated that's what they felt like.
Yes, I don't know. In terms of, pass rush, maybe you can sit there and say we can put our ears back on that young offensive line and get after them. But in terms of what they were able to do on defense, I don't think so. Ohio State still had a really good defensive showing. So maybe to their standard, they were exposed on the defensive side. But nonetheless, when you hold a team to 13 points and you hold a Heisman Trophy winning, probably winning quarterback to the numbers in which they held Fernando Mendoza to, I don't think they were exposed. But on the offensive end, they could certainly say, all right, we can make these guys one-dimensional because we can pin our ears back on the quarterback and we can try to force them to be a run-first football team, and maybe that isn't their strength.
Yeah. Cardale, what's your biggest concern moving forward in the playoff? What did you see in Indiana that makes you nervous for the playoff?
I wouldn't say it makes me nervous. The things I want to see improve for Ohio State is the efficiency of running the football and protecting the quarterback in those, for sure, passing situations, right? I think that was the biggest thing. We talked about the running game earlier this year, and we started to give them a lot of credit and emergence of Bo Jackson and things like that and the things he's able to do. But you never know how good your run game is until you play against some big physical guys who's just as good as shooting. That's what Indiana is. I wouldn't say Ohio State got exposed because I don't think this was a game planning situation where Sonetti and that staff out game planned Ryan Day and his staff on either side of the ball. I think it was just some positions up front that we had a segment with CBS Network HQ where we was picking and choosing which position groups from each team that you're going to go with. And I said up front on both sides of the ball is a toss. And I can't remember his name. I was going for a blank right now. 21 for Indiana. That linebacker is a freaking dog. Made plays in a pass game on that bootleg throw in the end zone, and he was in the backfield all day. And I'm so salty I can't think of his name right now. That's that Vegas brain.
Elijah Hardy.
Elijah Hardy is a freaking dog. So when you really breaking down in the looks of these guys, I remember walking on the sideline and seeing how big and physical these guys was up front for Indiana. I'm like, this is going to be a fun game to watch, a heavyweight bout. So exposed, I don't think so. Clearly going to continue to get better, and they're going to have this bye week to do so.
Well, the real tragedy in all this, guys, is that they kept me from Pasadena. I wanted Southern California. So now what's up next is the Cotton Bowl. They're going back to AT&T Stadium. We'll talk about the matchup as we know it here in a couple of weeks. But just a quick thought here, guys. Beanie, I'll start with you. Would you rather get Texas A&M in another quasi-home game in that state like we saw last year with Texas, or would you rather get Miami? Which is kind of funny. If they would have gone to the Orange Bowl, they could have gotten Miami and Miami,
right,
or Texas A&M in Texas. But what do you think? Would you rather get the Aggies or the Hurricanes?
I'd much rather get the Hurricanes, especially in that environment. You go into Texas. Miami is a team that has been so up and down, and I don't think they're a physical football team, especially at the point of contact like Ohio State is on the defensive side. So I think we'll have a much better opportunity versus those guys. And then we all know they go as far as Carson Beck allows them. And with his play, especially playing a tough defense, I think it'd be a little bit erratic. So I'd much rather see them than Marcel Reed and Texas A&M.
All right, we got one vote for the Hurricanes. Cardale, who do you want?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Miami as well, outside of just having the first matchup. Since I was a recruit and watching Ja'Cory Harris come into the shoe and play, I got to go with, Miami. I think with Marcel Reed and Casey Concepcion can, those issues that they can cause in the off-scripted plays for defense. I think mobile quarterbacks, and as truly mobile as Marcel Reed is, not just in the quarterback plus one running game, but those off-schedule plays. You look at the way Indiana played and the plays Fernando Mendoza made on us, the bigger ones came on in off-schedule plays. So being mobile, getting out the pocket, extending the plays. And that's what Marcel Reed do. I think probably, right behind Diego Pavia, the best in the country. So I'd rather have Miami in a situation, even though Carson Beck is playing really good right now. His last 4 weeks of the season, he completed over 80% of his passes. They're getting healthy at the right time, and I would just love that matchup between Miami and Ohio State.
Well, there's one other storyline that a lot of fans are talking about, and that is Brian Hartline trying to transition to South Florida while also being a Buckeye. Coming up later in the show, we're going to get your guys' take on if this is a distraction for the Buckeyes. But first, we're going to talk all about this bracket, and let's get our Notre Dame takes out. That's coming up next on The Script, the podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. College football not feeling as juicy as it once did? Well, let me put you onto something that'll shake up your Saturday and every other day of the week. Because now that Wendy's has crispy chicken tendies and a powerhouse lineup of new sauces, it's time you transfer to the hottest team in the league.
That's right. Team Tendies. Wendy's Tendies, they're making their undeniable rookie season one for the books. Enjoy first-string flavor from some five-star recruits Rep your new favorite team everywhere you go, but make sure you cheer with your mouth closed.
Take it to the end zone of savory sauces like honey barbecue, creamy ranch, and that new Wendy's signature sauce to experience a total taste bud blitz of flavor. It's time to join the team that won't upset you with an upset.
Taste the phenom that's gracing the gridiron with its juicy, crispy, and tendery tendencies. Don't fumble the bag, commit to Team Tendies, and call the most delicious plays in the playbook. All right, huddle up. Tendies on three. Tendies on three. 1, 2, 3, Tendies. Let's do this. Wendy's Chicken Tendies now at participating U.S. Wendy's. Support for The Script comes from Google. We hear commentators talk all the time about the spread offense, but what if you don't know exactly what that means or what makes it different from other offensive schemes? Well, you can keep wondering or ask your friends and hope they know what they're talking about, or you can use AI mode on Google search.
You can just type, help me understand what a spread option is and why a football team would choose to run it. Yep. You can ask all those questions in one search, and you'll get an organized and helpful AI-powered response with everything you need to know.
But it doesn't end there. Let's say you want to just keep going deeper. With AI mode, you don't have to start a whole new search. You can ask direct follow-ups like, break down how it compares to the pro-style offense based overall philosophy, types of formation, use, and pace.
AI mode is great at these type of comparisons, giving you a side-by-side analysis and helping you get the full story from one question to the next. So if you don't want to just watch the game, but really understand it, you can just ask Google. Welcome back to The Script, a podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Subscribe on Apple, follow us on Spotify, or click that subscribe button on YouTube right now. We are at The Script OSU everywhere on social. Time now for our Dr. Pepper look around the world of college football. Guys, we start with the team, Notre Dame, left out. Their AD is on the media tour. He is going off. They got screwed. Now, we wanted to get Marcus Freeman on this show, but they sent us the next best thing, and that's Beanie Wells, who is our resident Notre Dame representative. So, Beanie, go off, King.
Oh, man, I don't understand the committee in this situation. How do you leave a team off that's been playing the best football in the country? One of the teams playing the best in the country, the most consistent, if not the best. I was mind blown when the committee came out and they decided to pit Alabama in and then leave Notre Dame out. When you look at Alabama over the last couple of weeks, they've been inching and playing terrible football. And then in this football game, they got exposed. They played awful. They played awful versus Oklahoma when they ended up losing that game. Even the game versus Auburn was terrible. I cannot say Alabama is a playoff team when Notre Dame has been far and beyond playing the best ball consistently across the board since their losses in the early part of the year. It's mind-blowing to me. I'm not of the belief that they have to join the conference. Notre Dame has made so much money so many years, self-sustaining, not being in the conference. And I know everybody's saying, well, they needed to get in the conference. No. You put a team like that in, especially if they're playing good. I'm spitting and fumbling at the mouth and all that stuff. But if they're playing good, you put them in. And they were more deserving than some of these teams. I mean, it was just mind-blowing to me to sit there and watch them not get an opportunity to be in and, for them to have to go on this whole rant and this tear through the media right now.
All right, Cardale, I agree with about 3 things you said, and I disagree with about 3 things you said. I'll let you go first, then I'll weigh in.
Leave that ass up. No, I'm just joking. No, I definitely think they're more deserving than Alabama, especially like Beanie said, the last couple of weeks we've seen from Alabama, they could have easily lost to Auburn in the Iron Bowl and then going out there and getting smoked versus Georgia in the SEC championship game. And I get it. The committee is trying to set precedent in a rewarding type of feel for going to these conference championship games. But on the other side, you're not. Because if you really are, then Duke should be in. If you really are, BYU should be in. And we talk about a 10-2 team, I would love to see Vandy or Notre Dame in over Alabama, especially after our last outing with them and the way they played. And Alabama has been playing with fire all year, not being able to run the football. So when I'm thinking about the top 12 teams in the country, I'm thinking about the teams who are playing the best at this individual moment. And Alabama, unfortunately, isn't one of those teams. And then on the flip side, well, Notre Dame, yeah, you can look at their schedule. You can say, man, the last half of the schedule is not the greatest. And I think the media finally did its job when it comes to standing on a table for a team to make sure they get in. And I'm just saying not over Notre Dame, period, but just the Miami situation. But you compare the two because those two were the biggest debates this whole 2-3 weeks on which one of them are going to be in. I thought what would happen with BYU, Alabama, and Duke winning, that was the route for both Notre Dame and Miami to get in. But some way, somehow, the committee decided to keep Alabama at the same spot. They went into the SEC championship game before they got their ass whooped. It's kind of weird. But Notre Dame, I think what hurt Notre Dame was this. Out of the 10-game stretch they went on versus opponents that they should have done exactly what they did to them. I think the most impressive win is versus USC I think USC is 9-3. But out of all of those teams, 7 of those teams ranked in like no higher than 105th in defense. So I think some of those stats and some of those things that we was able to echo in the media why we felt Miami should get in over Notre Dame kind of played against that potential narrative and maybe persuade, the committee to say, you know what, that's right. I don't know how this defense or this team will stack up versus some of these top teams, especially when you talk about Notre Dame getting in at that potential 8, 9, 10 spot, playing against Ole Miss or Oregon with high-flying offenses.
Yeah, if it came down to Notre Dame against Miami, I was on Team Miami because of the head-to-head. But here's what's fascinating about it. All right, they basically said week 1 mattered in the end. All right, week 1 mattered in the end. Except for Alabama that lost 31-17 to Florida State. Mind you, we're talking a lot of ACC. Notre Dame's got a loose affiliation, and Miami's in the ACC. We're talking a lot of ACC. Florida State was the 13th best team in the ACC, and Alabama lost by 31-17, 2-touchdown game. So our first image of Alabama was they weren't that good. Our last image of Alabama, 28-7 against Georgia, was that they're not that good. So I was fine putting Miami in over Notre Dame. All right, and trust me, I am not a Notre Dame apologist like my guy Beanie here, but they do have a beef because they're one of the 12 best teams. Period. They're one of the 12 best teams. So now, but what Cardale's saying is very accurate. This is why you might have to join a conference because the way the schedule works out, you don't have as many like opponents. You're kind of all over the place. It is what it is. You can't say the conference is up or down. Notre Dame's just kind of this rogue agent out there doing whatever they want in college football. So in that regard, I don't feel sorry for Notre Dame. They did this to themselves. The other thing, though, guys, the ACC was playing that Miami-Notre Dame game on their ACC network, and Notre Dame's AD basically said, the ACC may have damaged our reputation beyond, or our relationship beyond repair. Guys, that's like if you got a girl and she's just a friends with benefits, you can't damage that relationship because it's not a real relationship.
It's not a relationship.
So Notre Dame needs to shut up on that front. You can't get mad at a girl who's not technically your girl and say she's being a bad partner.
Right.
You got to commit to that girl, Notre Dame, and then you can get mad at the relationship.
This
I agree right there.
This is the thing about the whole freaking non-conference thing for Notre Dame. Unfortunately, you guys don't want to join the conference. I understand it. I get it. I really personally don't care. But don't get mad when it bites you in the butt like it's biting you right now of not having a potential championship weekend and then also playing not against like opponents. Here's the kicker for Notre Dame when you want to talk about how independent you are. You're so independent you don't play nobody. Now, if you was a non-conference team that was playing maybe 2 SEC teams, maybe 3 Big Ten teams, some ACC. Like if you was doing it that way, I will be pounding the table for Notre Dame. I'll be saying, this is the way of college football. They're going out looking for smoke and they're playing. I'm not saying go out there and play the best of these conferences.
Schedule Tennessee and Iowa.
Exactly.
Just mid-level SEC Big Ten schools.
I would say with their availability, I would schedule mid-level, like you said, SEC teams. You can compete with the top-level ACC teams on a year-in, year-out basis, and I would do a little cupcakes in there. So I would schedule at least 5 Power 4 opponents, quality Power 4 opponents. No offense to Syracuse. I'm not talking about Syracuse, but I would schedule 5 quality Power 4 opponents, and then the rest cupcakes.
Look, did you guys see something that I found really, really interesting? Vanderbilt was potentially looking for another game to play.
Yes.
So I actually love.
They're looking for that smoke.
Exactly. They were looking for another game to play.
We
so
want
showcase.
we want a 13th game to prove that we're actually that good.
I actually do not mind a situation like that if universities and teams are in a position to where they're on the outside looking in, they're not in the conference championship game, and you're getting the last look at somebody else. Why
Like
not
a
make it
play-in
fair
game.
across the board to where everybody's getting the last look?
I
I don't mind that situation.
Yeah, what if Vandy calls up Notre Dame and says, hey,
go.
we're probably on the outside. If we go head-to-head, one of us is guaranteed to get in.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
Let's play for your spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love
that
that idea.
like a play-in game. I think that's more than understandable. But then I think the flip side and the argument to the committee that you want that 13 game win your conference.
Yeah, so the thing is,
that
too,
would be the part of the argument.
I think they got to change this thing up, and the way they change it up is, I do not believe it should be a situation to where all these other teams are getting a bye week and only conference champions are left to play and beat each other up. That's the craziest thing in the world to me. How does the committee fix this ordeal to where you're not just saying the conference championships, the teams that's supposed to be rewarded because they're playing in the conference championship is playing again, and everybody else sitting at home getting an essential bye, and then they're still getting the playoff. It makes no sense as to how they do things.
Yeah, I think you got to move the playoff up. I think in that situation, the first round should be this upcoming week because all the people who's not playing in the conference championship game, that was your bye, and now the top 4 seeds get this bye this upcoming week. So
Okay. Well, let's do this. You guys want to do? Let's do it now. All right. So this is our Buckeye basement solution. Let's diagnose it here. All right. Buckeye basement solution always gets you covered on how to fix your basement. We do it on the show every week. Let's fix this thing. So Cardale, if you're the commissioner, if you're the head of everything, give me 1 or 2 things you'd like to see to make this process better.
First of all, let's start here with the committee. So there should be a commissioner of the committee. This is the only multi-billion-dollar industry in the history of the world, Craig, top 5 security of the world, Craig, that's ran by volunteers. That's ran by, I'm walking down the street, hey, you want to come run this for me? Hey, you want to do it too? You get with no credentials set as just volunteers. So that's always been mind blowing to me. But I think when you talk, I like the 12 team. I like the 12 team, and I think if people want to stand on the table and pound the table for 16 teams and things like that, well, if you do that, I think you get to go away from conferences and you find a way to really distinguish the best 16 teams in the country with basically everybody being independent and you going away with conference championship games. But I don't think that's ever going to happen. But when you're talking about the seeding and giving more so incentivizing that top 4 seed, you need to make it a home game. So I would say conference champs, winners of the conference champs, the highest ranked conference champs, you're going to get that bye in that home game. And then clearly, if you're not playing in your conference championship game last weekend, well, this upcoming week is your first week of the college football playoffs. And then the following week, clearly, is the second round where the top 14 seeds they play and they have a home game. So.
Commissioner Wells, your Buckeye basement solution.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys heard John Gruden and his take on how to fix this thing. I actually loved his idea to where you obviously have the conference championship game, you have that week, but you also have play-ins. So you start the seeding a little bit earlier in terms of, okay, we got this big tournament, the college football playoff, but we also have a play-in scenario to where whoever the 5 seed is playing the 8th seed, or the 9th seed playing the 2 seed outside of the conference champions. The winner and loser of the conference champions are automatically in, and then everybody else is playing for specific seeding in the big dance. I like that idea because now you leave it to a situation to where you get an opportunity to legitimately see these teams all on an even playing field. Nobody's getting that additional bye week if that's not, how it's set and forth. If you're not a conference championship team or the loser, you're not getting that additional bye. And we're getting a chance to see who deserves to be in this thing, because now it's really breaking down the head-to-head matchups of how we should see. Like we talked about a Vanderbilt maybe playing a Notre Dame to get in this thing. Now it's making everybody a little bit more deserving. And the committee, in my opinion, they really have no clear-cut answers on how they evaluate things, because there's no way a situation should have happened in the ACC, not even just the committee, but conferences. There's no way it should have happened in the ACC where a 5-loss team is getting to play for a conference title. I don't care how you break it up or how you fix it. If you have Miami sitting there at 10-2, why aren't they playing your conference championship? And if you have Virginia play whatever their record was, 10-1 or whatever, those two should be the head-to-head. I don't see how you split up these stupid divisions like we did a couple of years ago where the Big Ten had the leaders and legends. It's stupid. The two best quality teams in my conference, that's who's playing in the title, and then that's who's going to be benefiting us in terms of getting an opportunity to play in the play-in or play in the college football playoff. They got to get clear-cut rules in both of these things.
It's funny you say that because I hate the play-in game in the basketball tournament. I hate it because I just don't care who's number 68, 67, 66, 65 because they're not relevant. In this scenario, you get me Texas against Notre Dame, Vandy against BYU. You get me some of these teams that are whining all through the month of December. I'm in. I'm actually in on that. But one of the things, Cardale, that frustrates me about this system as we do our Buckeye basement solution and try to fix this, we still don't know what title games mean. Do they matter? Do that? Because I'll tell you what, to Alabama, they don't matter. They lost 28-7. To BYU, sure mattered a lot. They got beat down by Texas Tech, and suddenly they're dead, right? So that's part of my issue is we don't know if a win matters, if a close loss matters, if a big loss knocks you out, because they treat these teams differently.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the rankings and things like that, I mean, I think if you do go to your conference championship game outside of what we just saw in the ACC, I think you are a top 12 team in the country going to, because clearly that winner is going to get that most likely the first round bye. I thought the way that the game, I mean, I don't see a difference in the way that Texas Tech whooped BYU and the way Georgia whooped Alabama. The thing when I'm looking at these conference championship games is becoming more meaningful to like this Ohio State Indiana situation, right? The question all week that we're getting, is this important or, who does this win mean more for? And I kept saying Indiana by a slight edge because they never done it before and they have a chance to continue extend history with, capping off their first one in this new conference championship era when you play an actual conference championship game on top of going 13-0. So yes, in that aspect, but I don't think so in the committee eyes. The committee for the first time in this committee era has punished a team that is playing good at the right times versus what you done earlier. I mean, the way Notre Dame is kind of left out on the outside looking in, the way Vandy is kind of left out on the outside looking in versus the I would say the two group of 5 teams at the bottom of this bracket. There's no way in hell you're going to tell me, with all due respect, JMU or is it Tulane?
Yeah, Tulane.
Mm-hmm.
Tulane, 2 of the top 12 teams in the country. Until we go away from pretty much this conference model and the way everything is set and just having the group of 4 is its own entity of the NCAA and let them figure out who the best champs is, just like how the NCAA has March Madness and the NIT and now that other conference or that other basketball tournament you can play in. Really, that's how it should be with football.
Well, if your damp or wet basement needs a quality solution by a local company, time to call Buckeye Basement Solutions. They are the pros at waterproofing, foundation repairing, creating dry, healthy spaces you can actually use. I'm talking no more leaks, no more worries, just peace of mind under your feet. Company founder Brian Mastroianni and his team of Buckeye Basement Solutions wishes you a safe and happy holidays. Guys, I will get you out on this. Notre Dame's decision to skip the Pop-Tarts Bowl and just say we're done. Is that standing on principle, or is that pouting, Mr. Wells?
Oh, it's tough. That is tough. I mean, you got so many guys on a roster, right, that you would love the opportunity to play in a bowl game. I mean, look, the bowl games, while right now as they sit, they don't mean a bunch, but you create so many incredible memories in those bowl games with your teammates, getting an opportunity to travel somewhere and play and stay for a week. I don't like the idea of them saying, you know what, we're going to opt out of it. I think that was an opportunity for Notre Dame to pound their chest and say, you know what, we make a lot of money on our own. We don't need this one bit. And now that you guys didn't put us in the college football playoff, we're going to try to screw the world of college football. I don't like that at all. I think it sets an awful precedent, and we did see other teams start to follow suit because Notre Dame isn't the only one that opted out of a bowl game this year. I think there's about 4 other teams that decided not to play in bowl games, and I hate that for the bowl games, and I hate that for the precedent that it sets, but more so for the kids. I mean, there's a lot of teams, right, that's never, ever going to be in the top tier moments of, this college football playoff era, but they're still getting an opportunity to go off and play in a bowl game that actually means something because it's the memories that you create. It's a fun time.
See, so Cardale, I love what Beanie just said there. All right, I'm fine with a player or two opting out if they're an NFL caliber player and not risking injury. But I keep hearing this phrase. People say, well, it's a meaningless bowl game. They've all been meaningless bowl games since the beginning of time outside of 1 or 2 games. In the BCS, everything was meaningless, air quotes, meaningless outside of that one game. So this idea, they've always been holiday exhibitions and memories, and I don't know, Cardale. I'm getting sick of hearing that these bowl games are meaningless. They've always been meaningless. Guess what? Every game in the NFL in Week 17, save 1 or 2, is meaningless. Every football game. Guess what? When my Kent State Golden Flashes play Akron, every year it's meaningless. Like, every game is meaningless outside of 1 or 2 games, right?
You know how to fix this real quick? Is the rev share model, right? Understand that if you guys want this rev share model to where it's going to the players and coaches are getting an opportunity to take part in this, you better be playing in these bowl games.
Yeah.
I can see the NCAA coming down and saying, you guys better start playing in this bowl games or this rev shares are going to start dropping in terms of the dollars that they're able to spend on these rosters. Because we're not going to spend all of this money if you guys aren't going to play in these games. That makes the NCAA much more dollars.
You know what's meaningless, Cardale? When Army plays Navy, there's no playoff implications. You're trying to tell me Army-Navy's meaningless? Like, let's stop this idea that unless it's a direct correlation to a college football playoff, it's meaningless. Sometimes we play football because we play football. Goodness.
I totally agree. I think they're pouting right now, and I think it is very selfish of them. But this goes back to my points of when I don't know where that came from, but I guarantee you, with a strong will of faith here, that every player in that locker room was like, "Yeah, coach, we don't want to play." I'm thinking about the guys who this is their last hoorah. I'm thinking about guys who feel like they need a little bit more film to get another, push at the NFL, or young guys who looking to get in there and potentially. How many careers we have saw that has started the previous year in bowl games, guys take that momentum to spring ball. So I think that was a higher up decision. So I don't want to hear any more bitching from coaches, from front office people in these programs when a player decides to opt out of a bowl game to save this up, make sure they don't get hurt. And then the things that, the people are saying, oh, man, Wild Risk getting hurt in the Pop-Tart Bowl, whatever game you go to. You could have got hurt last week. You could have got hurt in practice. You could have got hurt versus Miami. So that don't hold as much weight or arguments. I think, having another opportunity to compete. Where's the competitiveness side of these things? And I think with them opting out of this bowl game and not wanting to compete, because at the end of the day, this was about being competitive. I mean, I think it's really playing in the committee hands. It was like, well, you don't want to do this? Well, so what? Then, hey, we made the right decision by leaving you guys out.
I would have loved to see Vanderbilt and Notre Dame in a bowl game.
Yeah.
Well, Vanderbilt and BYU in a bowl game. I mean, it's going to be some quality chances to get out there and play, improve, and leave the discussion for next season. Oh, they probably should have been in that college football playoff.
Yes.
Did you see them in the Pop-Tart Bowl and the way that they looked? I mean, they were prepared. So,
I
hate this.
Yeah, I don't like it at all, like I said, especially for those guys who going out with their guys who's going to play their last game, who have opportunity to play the last game, who's got to get ready to go into the real world, to have their families go out there and see them play for the last time and stuff. I don't like it for that, and I guarantee you this was not a team decision. This was made up from the higher-ups thinking they're going to stick it to the man.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. It was, that's my thought. It's someone in an upstairs office trying to do something, because I find it hard to believe that 90 or 100 guys on that football team didn't want to play one more time. Hey, if you have any issues with your basement, BuckeyeBasementSolutions.com, 614-956-4592. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the Heisman Trophy, which seems like a done deal, Matt Campbell to Penn State, and I want to get these two guys' takes on Brian Hartline in South Florida. Distraction or not? That's coming up next on The Script.
For Buckeyes and businesses, Branded Bills has you covered. Whether you're showing your scarlet and gray pride or you're building a brand of your own, nothing tops a custom hat.
Branded Bills is a proud sponsor of Ohio State Athletics with licensed Buckeye headgear that looks just as good in the horseshoe as it does when you're walking around Columbus. And beyond game day, they specialize in custom headwear that helps businesses, teams, and communities stand out with premium fit, finish, and style.
So whether you are a diehard Buckeye, an entrepreneur, or just someone who want to rep their story, check out Branded Bills. Explore their official licensed Ohio State collection or design your own custom hat built just for you. Branded Bills, for Buckeyes and businesses, licensed pride, custom style.
Welcome back to The Script. Dave Holmes, Beanie Wells, Cardale Jones, every single week here, dropping on Wednesday. All right, guys, a lot of Buckeye fans were ecstatic when they heard Brian Hartline's going to stick around for the playoff run. But he went down to South Florida. He had a news conference. He talked to his team. He was wearing that different colored polo. And some of the fan base has turned on him. And I was reading the comments, which is something you should never do for mental health, but I was reading the comments, and people are like, stay down there. You're the reason we lost the Big Ten title game. You can't have two teams at the same time. So there is a part of the fan base that I think is still very happy that Brian Hartline's here. And there's a part of the base that lost a game to Indiana and now says good riddance. So, Beanie, is this a distraction to the Buckeyes to have one toe in Tampa and one toe in Columbus?
I think naturally, yes, it is a distraction. Anytime you have a coach that is going on to, I wouldn't say necessarily greener pastures, but going on to another place, and he's tasked with dual responsibilities, and then we know how media coverage and social media coverage is this day and age. That's going to be talked about. It's going to be talked about a lot. So the wide receivers in that wide receiver room, while they may be ultimately focused, there's still going to be those inklings that are leaking out about, Brian Hartline maybe not being all in on getting this team prepared. Whether that's the case or not, those are going to be the conversations. And in turn, that is a distraction because at some point in time, if you hear something enough in the back of your mind, you're going to start looking at it a little bit differently. And you may think like, is he doing everything that he can? Now, be it the case or not, that's just what happens in life. So to me, it is a little bit of a distraction. And naturally, every championship caliber team is always going to have to face those distractions. They're going to have to get over it and figure out a best way to mitigate it. But nonetheless, you asked the question, indeed, 100%.
And this is why Lane Kiffin could not have coached the playoff at Ole Miss while being the head coach at LSU. Cardale, your thoughts on Brian Hartline, Tampa, and Columbus at the same time?
You know what? I think in this day and age, he has to do that because of the timing of the portal and the timing of getting ready for spring ball and early recruits, and then also still being in the national championship hunt with Ohio State. It's unfortunate. We've seen multiple coaches like Coach Day, Lane Kiffin, and all around the country come out and speak about this time frame window where it's kind of hindering a coach from potential opportunities with a new team and a new role versus continue his obligation with his current team. And I went through that in college with Tom Herman. And crazy story, going to get ready for the Big Ten, the Sugar Bowl versus Alabama. I remember we asked him, like, hey, there's some rumors coming out, man. You're going to be taking a head coach out. And we were genuinely excited for him in that quarterback room. But Herman, and I wouldn't say he lied to us, but he downplayed, like, nah, man, I'm focused on this, blah, 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 and stuff like that. He never told us. He flew to Houston and flew to somewhere else for an interview. But he knew it would be a distraction to us, so he tried to shield it from us as much as possible. And then it broke literally as we driving over, I think the day before the Alabama game, and I personally felt like he lied to us. And I remember going and screenshotting and sending this in our group chat and saying, oh, like, congrats, coach, or whatever, like, very hostile. And he tried to reply, and I remember taking myself out the group chat, creating a separate group chat with just me and the quarterback players. And I'm like, screw this guy, let's do it for each other, blah, 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 no, this other crap. And I didn't talk to him, not just the day before the game, but leading up to the game as well, and that day as well. Now, so imagine that type of conversation or that environment where the quarterback is not talking to the quarterback coach and offensive coordinator. So it became a distraction for other reasons, but he tried to limit it as much as possible to make sure it wasn't like he wasn't all in at the task at hand. And clearly we reconciled that a few days after the game and clearly beat Oregon in the national championship game. But I think for right now, it could be a distraction, but I think with his coach, with his players wanting what's best for him, they understand the nature of the game, and they're saying, hey, they respect him that he's trying to juggle two things at once.
Interesting. All right, let's talk other coaching news. Matt Campbell from Iowa State to Penn State. All right, so I've actually known Matt Campbell for a long time. It's crazy. He was a Mount Union guy. He actually went to Perry High School. My dad was a principal in the Perry school system many, many years ago. And so I've actually kind of known Matt. I was in Toledo when he was the head coach of the Rockets. I'm a big Matt Campbell fan. I think Penn State got lucky here. I think they fumbled this every which way. And I think they still got a guy who's going to be a good fit. So, Beanie, what do you think about Matt Campbell to the Nittany Lions?
I love Matt Campbell. Man, Matt Campbell's a great coach. If you guys remember, and I'm talking to the guys at home and not just you two, but when you look at Matt Campbell and, there were coaching vacancies here at Ohio State once upon a time, Gene Smith was very high on Matt Campbell.
Yes.
He's almost been the coach at Ohio State on a couple of different occasions. And then when you look at, what he was been able to do at Iowa State, he's done more or less at that program. So what makes you believe that he won't go to Penn State and be even more successful than he was at Iowa State and Toledo? I mean, I think he's a great coach. He's going to get the most out of players. He understands this area in terms of the recruiting landscape. But I think, Penn State got felt very, very lucky because you hit this you hit this nail on the head, Cardale, when you said the 2 a.m. girlfriend, and I won't steal your thunder, but nonetheless, they absolutely missed on their coaching hires, waiting so long. And fortunately enough, he was right there welcoming them with open arms. I'm sure that checkbook that they had to write had to be a lot larger than anticipated, but they got so lucky getting Matt Campbell, getting one of the great coaches out there on the coaching market this late in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Beanie. And then I think I might have mentioned it on our show as well, but definitely on CBS where, right that week of James Franklin being fired, I think it was a Monday or a Tuesday. And then, that following weekend and everybody talking about these different fits for Penn State. And, Vegas had eyes out and he was last and I picked that guy. By the way, I'm like 3 for 3 by destroying Vegas on the odds of they having the very low totem pole of a guy or a team to finish in the conference. And I'm like, no, I got those guys. So follow my betting advice, guys. Just saying.
My man, you're literally in Vegas. Turn around, walk out that door behind you and place some bets. You're literally in Vegas.
I think so. But I love the hire into few points that Beanie has made was one thing I said about this Penn State job. You got to be able to hire someone who understands the nature of this landscape in this area, because you got to be able to go into Ohio, clearly in-house and PA, Jesus Christ, Virginia, West Virginia, all that region to recruit those players who probably growing up loving Penn State. Matt Campbell has a history of that already, 2-time Big 12 Coach of the Year. He's been to multiple Big 12 championship games, and he's pretty much almost basically coming home. So I love the hire. I'm surprised it took Penn State this long to come up with a head coach, but I think that's a product of basically reacting too early, too emotional, and firing James Franklin without having a true plan.
Yeah, 100%.
The question I have, though, is he bringing Rocco Beck with him? That's going to be real interesting. I think if he brings Rocco with him, he lights it up.
No, you got Grunkenmeister still there, the kid from Columbus, Ohio. He's still there. He was the one recruiting his class, and I don't think you want to risk losing that kid. I think you try. And then I look at the way that Rocco Beck plays, man. Rocco Beck plays. He's like a Haynes King, but not as good. Like I think the way he played in that system out there, I don't know if he's going to bring that system here to Penn State, but I'm going with a young guy.
All right, well, let's finish up with the Heisman Trophy. Fernando Mendoza is a statistical lock in all the betting lines. He is going to win the Heisman this weekend. Julian Sayan's going to be on the stage, and this is crazy, guys. All right, so 16 finalists in Ohio State history. 16 finalists. Ryan Day has coached 6 of them in the last 7 years, and he was also the OC for the late Dwayne Haskins. So Ryan Day has almost had a hand in half of the Heisman finalists in Ohio State history. So, Beanie, you good with Mendoza? It seems like it's clearly going to be him.
No, I'm not good with Mendoza. I love Mendoza. I think he's been great. But I'm going to the most exciting player in college football.
You're going to Vanderbilt.
A player that took his program to new heights that they'd never seen before. I'm going Diego Pavia.
Wow.
I don't know how you can't vote for this guy, and it'd be a huge disgrace if he's not the Heisman runner-up, in my opinion. If he doesn't win the Heisman, he definitely deserves to be the Heisman runner-up.
Well, I mean, you want to be first to lose. Who cares? Like, you know what I'm saying? But, Beanie, I said the same thing. I think Pavia is, you know what? And it's hard to agree with this guy. Jeez, I can't believe I'm about to say this. But Desmond Howard made a comment about basically the Heisman race and how I wouldn't say unimpressive a lot of these guys are, or I don't think anyone is the clear-cut best player in college football that's going to be here. I think Jeremiah Love can make an argument for it, but clearly the Heisman has turned to a quarterback type of award outside of what we saw from Travis Hunter last year playing both sides of the ball. But when you talk about the best player on a team, I would argue, a few of those guys are the best players on their team, but we all know who the best player in college football is. I think it's between Jeremiah Love and Jeremiah Smith. But Diego Pavia, when you talk about what the Heisman means, I think he fits that criteria. And I look at this, and I'm going to try to be short-winded here. The quarterbacks, what is Julian saying? How does he look in Vandy's offense? How does he look in Indiana offense? Is it different than Ohio State's? I think so. I think he still have an unbelievable completion rate because his rate of processing information, that doesn't change. Do he have as much success in those two offenses? Probably not, because of the way, especially Benny, the way they run the quarterback. Diego Pop is the leading rusher on their team. Same with Mendoza, probably not. Mendoza probably would have a little bit more success playing Ohio State because of weapons they got around him. You put Diego Pavia in any of these offenses, he's undoubtedly the Heisman Trophy winner. Not even close. Not even close.
Wow.
The things he can do in the run game and the pass game, you put him with the horses at Ohio State. You put him with those dogs, Cooper Jr., Sirac at Indiana. Jesus, this not even close. He's on undefeated. He'd be an undefeated quarterback, leading an undefeated team and a top-ranked team in college football, so getting ready to walk away with the Heisman.
Cardale Jones agreeing with Desmond Howard. I just took the liberty of canceling your return flight, so you are now permanently a Vegas resident.
I was agreeing to one comment out of the 999 million stupid things he said.
We'll allow. All right, guys, that'll do it for us on this week of The Scripted Podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Cardale, safe travels back. We'll add that third chair and have you on set next week, man.